Story 1. The Endless Road. It was a dark and stormy night as I set out on the long drive home from my friend's house. The rain was pouring down in sheets, making it difficult to see more than a few feet in front of my car. I turned on my windshield wipers, but they could barely keep up with the onslaught of water. As I drove down the deserted country road, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The trees lining the road seemed to loom over me, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The shadows cast by my headlights danced and flickered, as if they were alive. I turned on the radio, hoping to drown out the eerie silence, but all I got was static. I tried changing the station, but no matter where I turned, all I heard was the same unsettling hiss. Suddenly, my car started to sputter and slow down. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned off the engine and sat there in the darkness, listening to the rain pounding on the roof of my car. That's when I heard it, a faint scratching sound coming from the back seat. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Slowly, I turned around, my eyes straining to see through the gloom. At first, I didn't see anything, but then, a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, staring back at me. I let out a scream, fumbling for the door handle. I had to get out of there, had to get away from whatever was in my car. I burst out of the car, running down the road as fast as I could. The rain soaked through my clothes, chilling me to the bone. I could hear the sound of footsteps behind me, getting closer and closer. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like jelly, but still, the footsteps followed. I turned a corner, hoping to lose my pursuer, but instead, I found myself facing a dead end. I spun around, searching for a way out, but there was nowhere to go. The footsteps were getting closer, and I could hear a low, guttural growl. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the end. But instead of feeling sharp teeth tearing into my flesh, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find a police officer standing in front of me, a concerned look on his face. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked. "I got a call about a stranded motorist." I looked around, confused. The rain had stopped, and the road was well lit. There was no sign of the creature that had been chasing me. I'm not sure," I stammered. My car broke down, and I thought something was following me. The officer nodded, his expression understanding. "It's all right, miss. I'll give you a ride to the nearest town, and we can call for a tow truck." As I rode in the back of the police car, I couldn't help but wonder if what I had experienced had been real or just a figment of my imagination. But one thing was certain. I would never forget the terror of that endless road and the creature that lurked in the shadows. Story 2. The Hitchhiker. It was a cold, rainy night as I drove down the deserted highway, my headlights cutting through the darkness. I was exhausted, having been on the road for hours, and all I wanted to do was get home and collapse into bed. As I rounded a bend, I noticed a figure standing on the side of the road, thumb extended. A hitchhiker. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should stop. It was late, and the road was empty. What if this person was dangerous? But then, I saw the figure shiver in the cold, and my heart went out to them. I pulled over, rolling down the passenger window. "Need a ride?" I called out. The hitchhiker hurried over to the car, a grateful smile on their face. "Thank you so much," they said, climbing into the passenger seat. "I've been out here for hours." I nodded, putting the car back into gear. "No problem. Where are you headed?" The hitchhiker paused, their brow furrowing. "Actually, I'm not sure. I got into a fight with my boyfriend and stormed out of the house. I just needed to get away for a while." I glanced over at them, concern etching my features. "Well, I can take you as far as the next town, if you'd like. There's a bus station there, and you can figure out where to go from there." The hitchhiker nodded, settling back into the seat. That would be great, thanks. We drove in silence for a while, the only sound the steady hum of the engine and the patter of rain on the windshield. I kept glancing over at my passenger, trying to get a read on them. They seemed harmless enough, but there was something about them that made me uneasy. Suddenly, the hitchhiker turned to me, their eyes glinting in the darkness. You know, I've always wondered what it would be like to kill someone. I felt my blood run cold, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. What did you say? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The hitchhiker leaned in closer, a twisted smile spreading across their face. I said, I've always wondered what it would be like to kill someone, to feel their life slip away beneath my fingers, to watch the light fade from their eyes. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. Look, I think you should get out of my car, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The hitchhiker laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine. Oh, I don't think so. You see, I've decided that you're going to be my first victim. Before I could react, the hitchhiker lunged forward, their hands closing around my throat. I struggled to breathe, my vision blurring as the car swerved wildly down the road. I don't know how long the attack lasted, but eventually, the hitchhiker released their grip, leaving me gasping for air. They sat back, a satisfied smile on their face. That wasn't so bad, was it? They said, their voice dripping with malice. I didn't respond, my mind racing. I had to find a way to get help, to get away from this psychopath. But as I glanced around, I realized that we were alone on the road, with no sign of civilization in sight. I knew then that I was in grave danger, that I might not make it out of this alive. And as the car sped on through the darkness, I couldn't help but wonder if this was how it all ended. Alone on a deserted highway, at the mercy of a madman.
Story 3: The Abandoned House. It was a dark and stormy night as I drove down the winding country road, my headlights cutting through the thick fog. I had taken a wrong turn somewhere, and now I found myself lost in the middle of nowhere. As I rounded a bend, I noticed an old, dilapidated house looming in the distance. It looked abandoned, its windows boarded up and its paint peeling. Something about the house sent a chill down my spine, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I pulled over to the side of the road, my curiosity getting the better of me. I had to investigate this strange house, had to find out what secrets it held. As I approached the house, I noticed that the front door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, wincing as it creaked on its hinges. The interior was dark and musty, cobwebs clinging to every surface. I pulled out my phone, using its flashlight to illuminate my path. I made my way through the house, my footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As I passed by a doorway, I noticed something that made my blood run cold, a pair of eyes staring back at me from the darkness. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The eyes blinked and then disappeared, as if they had never been there at all. I shook my head, telling myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I continued on, exploring the house. In one room, I found a tattered old journal, its pages yellowed with age. I flipped it open, my eyes scanning the cramped handwriting. Day 47, it read. The voices are getting louder, more insistent. They tell me that I must kill, that I must spill blood to appease them. I can't take it anymore. I have to make them stop. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the words, my mind racing. What had happened in this house? Who had written this journal, and what had become of them? I turned the page, my breath catching in my throat. There, scrawled in what looked like blood, were the words, I couldn't stop them. I dropped the journal, my hands shaking. I had to get out of this house, had to get as far away from it as possible. I turned to leave, but as I did, I heard a noise behind me. I spun around, my flashlight illuminating a figure standing in the doorway. It was a man, his eyes sunken and his skin pale. He let out a guttural growl, his lips peeling back to reveal sharp, yellowed teeth. I screamed, turning and running for the front door. I burst out into the night, my heart pounding in my chest. I jumped into my car, locking the doors behind me. As I drove away, I couldn't help but glance back at the house. In one of the upstairs windows, I saw a face, the same face I had seen in the journal. It stared at me, its eyes filled with a hunger that sent chills down my spine. I drove on, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I knew that I would never forget the horrors of that abandoned house, and the creature that lurked within its walls.